A woman's body, shown from the stomach to the upper thighs, with her arms by her side. Her reproductive organs are superimposed over her body.
For the first 12 hours after conception,
Her body fades so that only the reproductive organs remain on screen.
the fertilized egg remains a single cell.
Zoom in on the left half, which is then shown in cross-section. There is an egg labeled fertilized egg cell in the fallopian tube. An on-screen counter reads 12 hours. Zoom in on the fertilized egg cell, which is labeled single cell.
After 30 hours or so, it divides from one cell into two.
The counter changes to 30 hours. The single cell divides and is labeled two-cell stage.
Some 15 hours later, the two cells divide to become four.
The counter changes to 45 hours. The cells divide again and are labeled four-cell stage.
And at the end of 3 days, the fertilized egg cell has become a berry-like structure made up of 16 cells.
The counter changes to 72 hours. The cells divide again and are labeled 16-cell stage.
This structure is called a morula, which is Latin for mulberry.
The label is replaced by one that reads morula, mulberry.
During the first 8 or 9 days after conception,
Zoom back out to the blastocyst traveling through the fallopian tube toward the uterus.
the cells that will eventually form the embryo continue to divide.
Zoom in on a cross-section of the fallopian tube to see the blastocyst being moved through the fallopian tube.
At the same time, the hollow structure in which they have arranged themselves, called a blastocyst, is slowly carried toward the uterus by tiny hair-like structures in the fallopian tube, called cilia.
Labels appear for blastocyst and cilia. Zoom back out to the cross-section of the fallopian tube and uterus.
The blastocyst, though only the size of a pinhead, is actually composed of hundreds of cells.
Zoom back out to once again see the blastocyst traveling through the fallopian tube toward the uterus. The blastocyst enters the uterus.
During the critically important process of implantation, the blastocyst must attach itself to the lining of the uterus, or the pregnancy will not survive.
The blastocyst lands on the wall of the uterus. Label appears. The blastocyst implants in the uterine lining. Zoom in on the blastocyst.
If we take a closer look at the uterus, you can see that the blastocyst actually buries itself in the lining of the uterus, where it will be able to get nourishment from the mother's blood supply.
Zoom in on the blastocyst implanted in the wall of the uterus. On-screen text appears. Cutaway view. Both the blastocyst and the mother's blood supply are labeled